Barbell Brigade. I'm Gio.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Lou.
They call me Silent Mike.
Who's they?
Who? Lou. Oh,
I have one person call you Silent Mike. Yeah. Well, welcome, Silent Mike. Nice to have you today.
Thanks, host Gio.
Anytime. All right, so what, if any, are the advantages of arching your back while benching?
This is huge. This is that Instagram topic.
This is
that
really
Instagram
good.
topic.
This is that IG hater.
It is.
Can I start?
And is it for everyone, not necessarily just powerlifters?
Can I start?
Yeah, absolutely.
One, I would say yes, it is for everyone. Two, there's two reasons that there's gonna end up being an arch in your back. We're not gonna try to arch, but there's gonna be end up an arch. It's a result of form. One, we're gonna try to tuck our shoulder blades down and back, retracting your scapula. That's gonna put your shoulders in a better place to press. Yeah.
Right there.
Naturally, what happens is your sternum's gonna get a little bit higher. That's gonna reduce range of motion, kind of a byproduct. Range of motion reducing, meaning that one, you have to bring the bar less distance to your chest, which can help you lift more weight, powerlifting. But for bodybuilding, health, whatever else, what it's gonna do is actually keep your shoulders safer by reducing that range of motion, because what we're trying to avoid is this elbow going too far past our midline. If you cut my body in half this way, my elbow goes way back here. That's more pressure on my delt and pec.
I feel it right now.
Right?
I'm not doing it.
Right, yeah, I feel a stretch.
Wow, right
or
there.
I can reduce that range of motion a little bit. Now that elbow's going a little bit, tuck that elbow a little bit, shoulder a little bit. Now that range of motion's a little bit less. You could argue you get more pectoral activation by going the further midline, a further range of motion. But my argument is, what about that further stimulation over 10 years, opposed to having shoulder issues for half those years by pressing the wrong way?
Kind of just to feed off of what you said, that it does. It also, like you said, removes a lot of that shoulder. It puts your chest and your pecs and your lats in a better position to press more. But some people are not able to do it, like really big guys.
100% individual.
So huge, really like super heavyweight guys aren't really able to arch so much. But because of the way that they're built, it already kind of puts them in a better position to press better.
Because they'll have a bigger chest.
Yeah, I mean, they have a bigger belly, they have a bigger chest, so they already kind of have that sort of angled position to recruit the chest or lats more, if anything.
I see you here.
Let's
you
go,
gotta
Charlie.
say something, let's fire.
No. So I actually addressed this with my buddy Nadeem before in a video. So
I know
what? Yeah. So one of the things that I'm looking at right now is that Mike just talked about all the benefits of being in that position for the tight arch. What we would do is we would take something from another sport, take something from a different perspective, and then apply it to bench press. So what you're looking at right now is we're looking at gymnastics, and gymnastics having different body positions that exemplify strength. So you have a hollow position, you have a neutral position, which is just standing, your natural center of gravity, you have a tight arch position. So with examining the tight arch, what we're looking at is the setup within the bench press. That tight arch is helping us activate our glutes, activate our legs, create stability, create balance. And if we were looking at the body earlier, the way in which you were demonstrating, you were talking about having your shoulders kind of impinged forward, right? Which could lead to a lot of injuries. But one of the issues is if we look at the apparatus in which we're moving, which is the barbell is the stimulus. We want to conduct energy to be able to put into this barbell. So if we're looking at our arm like a circuit, right? If a circuit hits a short, that's where the power ends. If we have an internal rotation of the shoulder, as soon as the bar is unracked, when the weight of the bar is transferred into the body, the power stops here. So an athlete's ability to bench a maximal weight would be more of an example of what they're able to move with their front delt and the upper pecs, opposed to if you have that scap retraction, that tight arch position, you get in a better position. Now as I'm bench pressing, you actually will have a lot of coaches say like drive from your back, right? That's just another way of cueing someone to keep that tight arch position and maintain that. So do I think that arching is good on a bench press? As long as you're in the right position as an athlete and you understand the cue the coach is giving you, then it's the right thing. I believe you can potentially overarch and negate those things, right?
Yeah.
But it's finding that sweet spot for your different biomechanics. But being in that tight arch position, we know from looking at the sports such as gymnastics, which is weird that I bring that up, with powerlifting, but I think that that's the root of all sport, and body awareness is one of the things that we have to understand. And as long as your body's in the right place to exemplify the most power, that's how you be most successful moving a barbell.
The two big things I read on the internet are, one, it doesn't activate your pecs. Why are you bros doing that? That's only good for powerlifting. And two, girls, you're gonna hurt your low back. Two things.
Could happen.
You can hurt your back wiping your butt, taking a shit.
Yeah, if you wipe.
Yeah. So
If you wipe.
the biggest thing why that arching your low back in the bench won't hurt your low back is because the transfer of power, similar stuff that he was talking about. The weight's coming this way, yeah, and our arch is this way, right? So if we're squatting and we have a similar arch, we have the axial load on our spine. The load's coming straight down onto our spine, and then our spine is crooked. Now we may be having some issues, right? But since the load's coming the opposite direction, we're most likely okay. And then my other argument for the pectoral thing, you can get in deep as you want, and bodybuilders, pro bodybuilders still do what they call like a guillotine press. They're pro bodybuilders, I'm not, so you can do that.
Yeah.
Seems dangerous, but what I would say is why not bench press the way that you can do it safest, use the most power and strength, therefore using the most weight, potentially building the most muscle, and then if you just want to work your pecs, why don't you do like a pec fly?
Well, if you have least risk for injury, that is the most safest way to lift because you will sustain that lifting for a longer period of time, which will make you more successful. And we all know that it's doing the little things, it's step by step as a progression. Anyone that's progressing too fast is due for failure.
Yeah, injury.
Yeah, injury. If you're moving too fast in the strength game, there's a few ways to do that, but it's gonna lead to injury at some point if you're negating doing things the right way and building diligently within the sport.
Let's go to Lou here, our local expert on the bench press, who has most recently benched 315 pounds, ladies and gentlemen.
He said,
Lou on the field, what do you got for me, pal?
he said to put a hump in your back and shake your rump.
Is that the Yin Yang Twins?
John said face down, ass up. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think that the biggest issue for me was actually getting in that position as far as just like bench pressing. I wouldn't really pinch my back. I wouldn't really dig my back into the bench and use my feet to kind of stabilize my back and using my entire body.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really long process to actually learn and practice that because you're practicing to
So many cues.
learning to breathe in deep and trying to take a big breath and increase intra-abdominal pressure. Trying to pitch your scapular back, trying to push your feet back. And it's not about pushing up, it's about pushing back, you know? And I think a lot of people get a misconception of that when bench pressing using leg drive, you know, they don't understand that you're not pushing up, that you're pushing backwards and your back is stabilizing the entire movement. And I think now that I'm finally getting it down, it's taken me almost like, what, like 3 years?
7 years.
Yeah.
It is hard when you talk about like squeezing your scapula because you're pressing this way, but you want to be squeezing the opposite way.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a weird sensation. It takes a long time.
And it's
to
also
practice.
just like, it's uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be, you know, like you have to get as tight as possible. I think when I'm trying to implement this with a lot of people that they complain a lot about my back is getting tight. It's because you're not used to it, you know. It's gonna take some time for you to kind of get adjusted to it. Your body will get adjusted to it. The beginning's gonna suck a lot, you know, but it will become easier with more practice, and it eventually become more natural the more you do it.
Who said powerlifting's not technical?
Yeah.
That's so technical. All right, gentlemen. What is volume, and what are the pros and cons to training with a lot of
This
volume?
one goes to 11.
What? Oh, haha.
No one? This one goes to 11.
I don't know.
Spinal tap? Nobody. Nobody in the whole building knows spinal tap.
That's some white people stuff,
It
bro.
is some white. It is some
You
white
see,
people.
white
tap.
people not here.
You know it?
Yeah.
All right.
But
I don't watch movies.
okay.
It's a mockumentary, yeah? Of
Yeah.
a band. Yeah. But I don't know that. I don't
It's
follow
really
This
old.
one goes to
It's
11.
really, really old.
This one, he's talking about. He's trying to sell a guitar amp.
Well, can we just bring it back to what we really
Yeah, I was
wanted to
talking
talk
about. I was making a pun on volume.
Yeah, but there's no white people here, so it's not. It fell on deaf ears, bro.
You
So
don't know
move it
about
on.
radio volume?
Move it on.
All right.
Radio was that was a good movie.
Radio was a good movie.
Radio.
You see what you did? No one wants to talk about volume now. The pros and the cons. Can we bring it back?
Lead the way, Lou. You're a big volume frequency
Well,
guy.
I think
What
that
is volume, first of all?
Well, the training volume would be how many sets times reps times the weight you doing in particular workout week, month, year, depending on how you're calculating it.
Which is true.
important. It is very important. I think it's a good transition when you're not prepping for meet in terms of powerlifting or maybe even weightlifting as well. You know, it's a good time to address and practice form. Definitely increase your work capacity. You know, and it's definitely good for recovery as well. But I think to a certain extent, volume could also be very negative. You know, you could definitely overdo volume as well. It could also lead to injury, but it's definitely you're definitely less prone to get injured with volume as opposed to trying to lift heavy all the time.
It's a term thrown out a lot now. I think it's kind of a trend buzzword.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like oh, volume training today, bro, or whatever. Oh yeah, I train high volume. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
6 reps is not high volume.
Yeah, well, it's all relative, right? It's all
Yeah.
relative.
Yeah.
If you're used to doing 3x3s or even Wendler's 5-3-1, a program like
true,
that, and you start
true,
hitting a 6x6 twice a week, right? Your volume
That's
goes up.
pretty intense.
Right, so it's just different. There's multiple factors in getting strong. Hypertrophy is a big one. How much muscle you have, the more potential you do to be stronger. And that's per person. Somebody could have less muscle than me, but be very much stronger than me, right? Because there's other factors. There's like power, like how many muscle fibers you can recruit per second, per milli, whatever, right? Yeah, and like fucking push into the bar, right?
Yeah.
How fast your body moves, how many fibers you fire. And then there's skill. There's skill acquisition, we call it. So I'm a big fan of training in a certain amount of volume because it's a good way to train all of those. So if you train in different rep ranges, you're hitting all this kind of power output in different muscle fibers. If you train 1 to 5, 5s to 10s, 10s to 15s, you're hitting multiple types of muscle fibers. You do that within a week, a month, a year. Muscle grows, you get more powerful. Like I said, muscle grows. There's time under tension, like muscular fatigue. And then there's volume. Those are 2 ways to grow muscle. Obviously, everyone wants to get more jacked.
Yeah.
And then the skill acquisition portion, getting better at the lift. And what's gonna give you more practice to be better squatter, 3 sets of 3 or 10 sets of 3? Well, 10 sets of 3, you get more opportunities to. Is Michael Jordan gonna shoot 3 jump shots and go home?
No.
Or is he gonna shoot 100 jump shots and go home because he's gonna be better, right?
Yeah, I think the only adverse thing I could see with volume is I think that volume, if you use it as a word to communicate and have the understanding of what the communication looks like, is an increased workload more than you're currently doing, right? Adding more, that's more volume. The only thing I would say is with volume training, if you're an athlete at home training any way that you're training, doing it right and being successful versus doing it wrong a bunch of times. So what's the skill pattern that you're trying to ingrain? So say Michael Jordan, like he's obviously making a lot of shots, but do you miss 1,000 and make 5, or should you make 1,000 and miss 5?
Huge.
So with your volume, I think no matter if you're like Noah Olson, one of the guys that we sponsor, whether you're gonna do 6 CrossFit workouts in one day, plus a strength component, plus gymnastics, only doing that volume if it's gonna benefit you as an athlete, or if you're looking at those other sides, like only like snatch and clean jerk, for example. If you're taking 100 snatches and you're only making 6, and you're like, no, I'm gonna try again, all you're doing is ingrading bad muscle patterns. So I think volume should only happen when there's an end goal, and the process for adding that volume is helping you perpetuate yourself to be successful, not pacifying your need to want to train. Because everyone wants to train. I show up the other day to Barbell Brigade and the music was on, I was like, I wanna do 6 workouts, but it wouldn't be the best thing for me. It's having the planned approach. So increasing volume is increasing your consistency of training or how many sets or reps you're doing. And then from there, if you are increasing that volume, the only time I feel that is appropriate is if you're either trying to develop a new skill. So failure is okay there, but at a certain point you need to back off because then you're practicing failing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like a whole different
No, yeah.
perspective
I think it's a huge.
of volume.
I think it depends per sport too, because like in powerlifting, I don't have anyone fail ever.
Yeah.
Right, but
Especially
weightlifting, that's
for
kind of
volume.
impossible.
Yeah, but in volume, if the percentages are wrong, the weights on the bar's wrong, and you keep
100%.
trying, like, so volume, like, hey, like every time I'm supposed to pull 4x8, I'm only pulling 6, and I'm gonna do another set, try to get 8, and now I pull 4.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so what's the issue there? Is it the volume, intensity, or is it the percentage?
Yeah.
So if you want to increase volume, and that's the main goal, the goal with increasing volume is changing the percentages and reps based upon how you're feeling that day. If the total goal is to get most reps within that workout. If not, I just had one of our athletes the other day. She was squatting, really pissed me off, and I was trying to be nice. And I said, you have to do like a 4x6. And then she did a set of 6, then a third one she did 4, then she re-racked it, then did a set of 4, then re-racked it, then did 2, and said, I'm done. I said, no, the goal for today was to have this amount of volume in squatting.
And you didn't
Well, I
do
can't
it.
hit my numbers. Drop your numbers. If the goal is the reps, the goal is the reps. So you have to have a clear perspective of what you're doing. And so, sorry, this gets me on a really huge tangent, but there's a coach from I think he's the Dominican Republic. He works with Sean Waxman, somewhere I think from there. And his perspective on when someone asks for, you need to hit 90% today, if their body's not capable of hitting those reps correctly for 90%, he changes that 90% to 90% of your best effort today. So the percentages, the pure number comes down, but it's the weight of what 90 feels like for you today. So then you're training your mind to train at that level, because we all can experience an A day or B day. There's days where I think I'm gonna crush the gym and I get there and the barbell feels heavy. But there's days I feel like dog shit and I walk in, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I was gonna move this well today. So I think that's one of the things you have to discover with volume.
I think Lou coaches a lot that way. We have auto regulation.
So I do use auto regulation or rate of perceived exertion, which I think is really important. It's just really tough to have a beginner use it because they don't have any experience with top sets, bottom sets, sub-maximal weight or maximal weight. And I think that the biggest issue with volume is the percentages. The intensities can still be high, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be hitting like maximal weight. If you're trying to practice the movement, then I would say, just like Charlie said, that you have to lower the weight, practice the movement, make sure every rep is consistent and smooth. I'm not a big fan of air maps. I'm not a big fan of air maps because you're teaching somebody to eventually fail. And I feel like you could get better training from having higher working sets or volume. You know, the only issue with RPE is really setting your ego aside, and I think it's a good way to train because just like Charlie said, every day is gonna fluctuate. I mean, you could be tired from the previous week, you could be hungry, you didn't get enough sleep, stress can actually affect your training as well. So those are all factors that we really don't take into consideration sometimes, and that's why I'm a big fan of RPE. I know my schedule is crazy, I know your schedule is crazy, everybody's schedules here are kind of crazy. So your training is not always going to be consistent, and the cool thing with RPE, for example, or auto regulation, is that you're able to train based off of how you feel. So instead of setting up yourself for failure, which is not necessarily what percentages do, but sometimes it's unrealistic. I mean, percentages were created to assist you, right?
Yeah.
And they were created to help you hit a certain amount of weight at a certain amount of time. I mean, the realistic thing about percentages is that you can't always hit that percentage. You know, it's always going to fluctuate on a weekly basis, day-to-day basis, even from hour to hour in your day. And so it's really, really important to try to set your ego aside and really adjust the weight to something that you can handle at the moment. And that's why I'm a big fan of auto regulation and not so much of percentages. I think that percentages are definitely helpful maybe for a beginner eventually once they get used to that.
Maybe like a guideline.
Yeah, it could be a good foundation or a base for in the beginning so they could get an idea of what 80% feels and 50% should feel like.
Dope. Well, that's some great advice, guys. If there are any other questions that you guys would like for us to answer, please leave those in the comments below. Like the video, share the video with anyone you feel might benefit from this. Until next time, thank you and
Deuce.
What are some unspoken gym rules that everyone should know?
I have a bunch that are like,
so many.
I think unspoken.
Oh, shit, that's next level.
It's like